Your audio is on.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna and welcome to each and every one of you for this wonderful evening where we'll be discovering the secrets of Bhagavad Gita. So I am really thrilled and excited and overwhelmed with the response, the type of encouraging messages that we are receiving from all of you. I am greatly indebted. So I am your course co-facilitator, Sukirti Madhavi, and we would start the session because it is 7. So now, to all of you, I welcome for this 18 session, 18 days course on Gita Made Easy. So we chose this title, Gita Made Easy, with a lot of thinking. I mean, a lot of thinking has gone behind it because we wanted to reach out this message of Bhagavad Gita to as many people as possible. And we have been brainstorming as how is it that possible? So then we thought that we would explain this Bhagavad Gita in our regular language, like rather than using big Sanskrit words and shlokas, if we extract the essence of Bhagavad Gita and explain in a language which is easily connectable.
If I'm audible, yes.
Hare Krishna, I was not audible, I guess. Am I audible now? Can you type yes to confirm if I'm audible? Great. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. So I welcome all of you for this 18 days, 18 session course on Gita Made Easy. I'm very excited, thrilled, and overwhelmed with the type of responses we are receiving. We are very happy and touched. So this Gita Made Easy is an attempt to simplify Bhagavad Gita so that each one of us can apply this book of wisdom in our everyday, day-to-day lives. We have done a lot of thinking about it, that how do we present it so that we can reach to many people, so that it does not stay a book which is just for worship and not to be read. So here we have extracted a lot of life examples from Bhagavad Gita. So we have tried to simplify the concepts and then explain it to you. So now, when we all have joined this course, I'm sure that each one of us is looking forward for something particular. Like some of you would have joined to know more about the Supreme Lord. Some of you would have joined to acquire some wisdom. Some of you would have come to find out if there is a life which is without stress, and if we can find on the basis of Bhagavad Gita. Some of you may have come to find some success formula in relationships. Some of you would have joined for overall life management. So there are so many things for which we have joined, but ultimately in our life, we are all searching for happiness. So we have joined for this course also because we think that we can become more happy by understanding Bhagavad Gita. Actually, my dear friends, this has been our search from the time we are born. Like if we remember, like I remember very clearly when I was a young girl, probably in 3rd or 4th standard, and my parents used to tell, especially my mother, she would tell quite often that study hard, beta pad le, achhe number aa jaye, get good marks, and then your life will be successful and you will be happy. So parents would tell, I'm not saying anything for me, I'm telling for your advantage. If you study, you will be like really good and happy. So we all slogged, we all studied, we all were like stumbling, fumbling. Somehow we reached in our 10th. When we reached 10th, the same thing was repeated to us, that 10th board mark sheet. It is very important. It's the best thing. So this would be asked throughout your life. So you please get it, get good marks and all that. And then we start struggling for 10th and somehow we get good marks and we come to 12th standard. And then the same slogan starts that this 12th class, it will define your career. It will tell that whether you will be an engineer or you will become a chartered accountant, or everything depends on it. So slog. And we do that. And yet we don't find that complete happiness. So then our seniors, our elders, They advise us that, okay, you get into a good engineering college. And then we try and we get into a good engineering college or a medical college. So we do that. And then there is a different set of problems there, different issues. There is ragging, there is hostel food, there we stop missing out our family members. So many difficulties. And yet we are shown the carrot that the next thing is you get placed in a good company. So we start thinking for that. We start striving for that. And let's say we make it to Google. Okay, so we feel that, okay, so now I have got a good job. Now I have everything which will give me happiness. And we realize that my working hours are for like 12 hours and 13 hours. So again, happiness is missing, though the bank balance is increasing, so though the luxuries are there, but I'm not there to enjoy those luxuries. So where is this happiness? And then after a while, we are told that, look, if you get married, you would be happy. You need a life partner. And then life would be fun. So we do that also, and we get married. And the honeymoon period lasts maybe 1 year, 2 years, very lucky, 3 years. But then honeymoon period gets over, and what is left is some bitterness, some expectations, some frustration, some relationship issues. So again, we are told that to strengthen this bond, what you need to do is you get a child. So that will strengthen the bond between the two of you and you would be happy. So thinking that, we try for that also, and then start the period where we are just changing the nappies and where we are having the sleepless nights, and we are still looking for happiness, my dear friends. We are still trying to figure out where did it go? Where did it go? And in this search, the child grows up a little and the child reaches in 3rd or 4th. And you know what we start telling? Study hard and then you will be happy. So interestingly, this happiness is like missing link. So did this happen to you? If yes, type oh yes in the chat box. Let us see how many of you have experienced this in your life.
Chat.
Can we, what is it? Yes, so can we type there, oh yes. So let's see how many of us, Apeksha, Vasundhar, Shiva, Rishabh Jain. Oh, there is somebody called coronavirus. Pushpa, Dimple, Chandra. So we are getting so many, 44, 38 new messages. So many of us have gone through all this rattling of the life. And finally, the time arrives when we realize that this is not working out. Let me figure out where is this thing called happiness. So when that happens, then what we do is we enroll for a 18 days, 18 session course on Bhagavad Gita. So that is how we take the refuge of Bhagavad Gita. We start looking into Bhagavad Gita and we start searching our questions. And that is a time when we make some intelligent inquiries. That's the time when we start asking ourselves that is there some permanent happiness in life? Who am I actually? And where am I going? And what is happening in my life? So then we come to the platform that we become human. So that is the beginning of being human. I know you would be thinking that this is the tagline of Salman Khan, but then this is what it means to be human when we start making this intelligent inquiries. Otherwise, according to Bhagavad Gita, what we have been doing is like what any other animal also does. So Bhagavad Gita states that animals are busy with 4 things: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And we are also doing only these 4 things: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. We may be doing at a different level, but the propensity is the same. Like we may want soft cushioned bed to sleep and animals sleep anywhere. We may require a particular job or a career to defend us financially, and the animals fight and attack with each other and then they defend. But then, my dear friends, the point is that we have to understand what differentiates a man from an animal is this higher inquiry. And the result of these inquiries we get through Bhagavad Gita. So I would request all of you, we are sharing a poll here. So please check on your screen, and here we are launching a poll. Those of you who are on the Facebook, there also we are launching a poll there. Now, have you read Bhagavad Gita before? Please start responding. There are few choices there. So I want to see how many of us have tried, how many of us know in bits and pieces, how many of us are completely new. Let's see that. So you get a little while. Yes. A few more, 20% more responses we are waiting for. So now as I get here, around 28% of us have never read Bhagavad Gita. 42% have read in bits and pieces. 8% have attended some discourses but never read. 10% have read once, and 12% have read more than once. Can we share the poll result? So this is what we are sharing the results. So this is what we have taken a poll just now, and this is our understanding of our audience. So now, interesting point is that if you have read Bhagavad Gita more than once, if you have read it only once, if you have read it in bits and pieces, or if you have never read it at all, I guarantee that each one of you will get something out of this course. Now, how is that? So those of you who have never read Bhagavad Gita would get a complete synopsis of the whole Bhagavad Gita as how the Bhagavad Gita flows. Those of you who have read it in bits and pieces here and there, or those of you who have attended some discourse but never read, for you, it will be like a jigsaw puzzle getting solved. So like small blocks or pieces, and then the jigsaw puzzle. I'm sure all of us would have attempted that when we were child. So this session would be like that, fitting all the blocks. For some of you who have read Bhagavad Gita once, or who have read more than once, so for those who have read it once, it enhances the understanding of Bhagavad Gita. It gives a deeper meaning of Bhagavad Gita. And for those of us who have read it more than once, it gives a complete flow. See, Bhagavad Gita, the name itself means it is song of the Lord. So it has a beginning, it has a middle portion, and it has an end. So the whole sequence, it is a conversation. So everything would be revealed. So can you stop sharing? So there is something for everybody. So let's proceed next and see what is coming up. So now we will tell you a little background about Bhagavad Gita. So when we talk about Bhagavad Gita, it is actually an episode which happens during Mahabharata. It is a discussion which is mostly of a KT nature, knowledge transfer, the IT professional. So this is the top class KT happening there, when the knowledge is getting transferred from Krishna to Arjuna. And to understand in what context it happens, actually more than 5,000 years ago, there was this royal glorious dynasty known as Kuru. And in that Kuru dynasty, there were two brothers, Pandu and Dhritarashtra. So Dhritarashtra was the elder brother, and Dhritarashtra was born blind. Because of this, he was disqualified to be a king, and that is why the younger brother Pandu became the king. Now, untimely, Pandu died. So when Pandu died, his children, he had 5 sons who are known as Pandavas. So his children were very young to rule the kingdom. So as a deputy, Dhritarashtra was appointed. Now Dhritarashtra had 100 sons headed by Duryodhana. So Dhritarashtra was appointed as a deputy for the whole kingdom, for running the kingdom. This son of Dhritarashtra, whose name is Duryodhana, he was quite envious of his cousin brothers. And though all the Kauravas and Pandavas got the same military training, they got the same academic training, they got the same royal facilities, yet Duryodhana was always envious of his cousins. He did so many conspiracies. He tried to poison them. He tried to burn them alive. He was constantly trying to usurp their kingdom. And finally, in an unfaithful gambling match, he actually cheated the Pandavas and he took away all their kingdom. For 13 years, he sent them on exile. So when this exile period got over and they came back, they requested for the kingdom back, which Duryodhana bluntly refused. When that happened, then Krishna was approached. Now Krishna is their cousin. He was a cousin brother. So they asked, at least give us 5 villages and we will be happy in those 5 villages itself. But then that also was refused completely. So then they were very tensed and anxious as what to do. And then finally Krishna goes as a peace messenger. And yet it was not taken into consideration. So finally the war became inevitable. So because Pandavas were the rulers and it is the duty of a Kshatriya or the rulers to protect the citizen, so it was Pandavas' responsibility to protect the entire citizen. So that is why this war became inevitable. So when this war started, so this whole Bhagavad Gita is actually spoken on this war field. And this place is known as Kurukshetra, where this battle happened. And now we will enter into Bhagavad Gita. So before we get into it, a small announcement. We are sharing a link here on the chat window. And this link has a form where you can ask any questions you want related to the topic we are discussing. So any question, any doubt, what you have to do is you just have to click at that link, give your name, email ID and the question. And it also has a chapter number. So like today, you have to choose chapter number 1. So you keep updating that, and after the session, our team will get back to you on your email ID with this answers. So we request you to utilize it anytime you get any doubt during the discussion, because we are, I think, more than 3,000 people here. So it will be difficult to take the questions online. So we have come up with this thing. And those who are in Facebook, they're also in the chat window. We are sharing this form. So kindly keep posting your questions there and you will get the answers. We will try to send it to you as soon as possible. Of course, after the session. Yeah. So now, till this time, if it is everything is clear to you, I request all of you to please type clear in the chat window. Can they type? We are just enabling. Yes. So we are looking forward for your clear messages. Akhila is clear. Shravan Kumar, Prakash. Oops, there are 67 messages together. So I'm sorry, I can't read all your names, but I'm assuming that it is clear to everybody. Okay, great. So now we will continue to the next thing, a chapter overview. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah. So now here we see on the screen that we have mentioned different sections of Bhagavad Gita. So now what we have done is the entire chapter, for our understanding, we have divided into various sections. So this chapter, chapter number 1, it is actually an introduction to the whole Bhagavad Gita. So it has more of stories rather than the detailing, rather than the philosophy. So now as you can see, the first section is from verse number 1 to verse number 11. And this title is Setting the Scene. Second is All Auspicious Krishna from 1 to 12 to 20. Third is The Lord Loves His Devotee from verse number 21 to 27. And verse number 28 to 46 talks about the miseries of life. So don't get bewildered, don't get perplexed. We will take it easy, one at a time. Stay with us and we will continue. Can we go to the next slide? This is how Bhagavad Gita begins. So this is the shloka. Dhritarashtra uvacha dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveda yutsavaha mamaka pandavaschaiva kim akurvat sanjaya. So here, this is shloka number 1.1. And also at the end of the course, at the end of the class, we would be sharing the notes also. So in case if you have small screens of your phone and you are not able to take it down, no worries, we will share it. So now in this shloka, this is how Bhagavad Gita begins. Dhritarashtra uvacha means Dhritarashtra asks. So now Dhritarashtra is questioning here to Sanjaya. So Sanjaya is the person who has this benediction that though he was sitting with Dhritarashtra, because Dhritarashtra was blind, Sanjay had this vision that sitting in one room, he could see the live, what was going on in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Just like how we all are sitting in different part of the world and you all are able to see me because you have that divine eyes. So similarly, Sanjaya had this divine vision. They did not need the technology though. We need Zoom platform. They did not. We need Facebook. They did not. So Sanjay was able to see what was happening at the battlefield and Sanjay was describing everything. So we see that Dhritarashtra is asking here that my sons and sons of Pandu, after gathering at the battlefield, what did they do? So now this chapter has this section, this particular section has two main characters, Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana. So we will get to know about their mindsets. So Dhritarashtra, as we can see, he is doubtful, fearful, and he is partial. So he is doubtful. Why is he doubtful? Because this battle is happening at Dharma Kshetra. Dharma Kshetra means a pilgrimage. So this Dharma Kshetra is a kshetra or a land which favors people who follow religion. It is just like in our country, those people who follow the rules of the government, they are treated as law-abiding citizens and they get special privilege. And those who do not abide the laws, they are penalized. So similarly, here we see that this particular land where this battle was about to start, this is Dharma Kshetra. So by its own virtue, it would favor people who were dharmic. So Dhritarashtra knew that his sons and he was not following the dharma. What is dharma? Dharma is to follow our constitutional duty. So Bhagavad Gita describes that a dharma of a human being is to serve. And we can find that in various capacities, actually, we are all serving. We are serving our parents. We are serving our country. We are serving our community. We are serving our children. We are serving our bosses. So that is how. So dharma of a living entity, of a human being, is to serve. So now here, because his boys or his sons were impious people, so that was the reason why Dhritarashtra was having this doubt. Next. So here there is a life lesson. So we will be inserting these life lessons for our application purpose. So now the life lesson is, if I take care of the dharma, then dharma takes care of me. Which means if I do my duties properly, then the duties become a shield for me and it protects me from any inauspicious things. So that is the first lesson, first life lesson which we are learning here, that if we protect our dharma, dharma protects us. Next, we see that Dhritarashtra was fearful. Now, why was he fearful? He was very fearful because he was so attached. He was so attached to his son and especially Duryodhana. So he was very concerned, and the more we are attached, the more we become anxious. So a common example for that would be like if there is a young boy and a young girl and they become attracted towards each other and let's say they have an affair. So before they start the affair, that feeling of possessiveness, the feeling of anxiety, the feeling of what my partner is doing, is she with some boy or if he is with some other girl, all those anxieties are not there. If they are just friends, it is okay. But what happens, the relationship changes and the attachment becomes like really strong. So when the attachment is strong, then it's strong. So that is why we see that we have another learning, life learning here. Can you minimize the Zoom screen? So we see that there is another life learning, that too much attachment causes anxiety. So we need to be watching out ourselves, because if we are too attached, then it causes anxiety. The third thing what we see here is Dhritarashtra was partial. Now how is he partial? Because we read in this shloka just now. Now he is a king. So for the king, it is very much required to be impartial to all the citizens. But here he is partial because he is telling that what did my son and the sons of Pandu do. So he is actually discriminating. So this discriminating mentality leads us to the mentality of me and mine. So with that comes so many property disputes, for example. Or with that, we learn that we start feeling that I'm the best. And then a little extension, my child or my parents are the best. And a little extension, my family is the best. My phone is the best. My country is the best. My nation is the best. So like whatever belongs to me. So basically what we are doing is we are discriminating. We are being dual in our nature. So we start favoring certain things and we start rejecting certain things just because we become judgmental. So these are the 3 points about Dhritarashtra, that he is doubtful, fearful, and partial. If it is all clear, if you all agree to it, type agree in your chat box. So let it be on. Just 1 second, I think. So we will go to the next section because I think there is some difficulty here. So we will try and understand now what was Duryodhana feeling. So Duryodhana was anxious, and in his anxiety, he is doing 2 things. One, he is bragging about his army. He starts glorifying his army, that my army is so good. My people are so powerful. I have such good warriors in me. So now, when do we get in this glorifying myself business? That happens when I feel insecure about me. So that is another life lesson, that self-glorification is a symptom of insecurity. So if I feel insecure, then I brag about myself. Otherwise, I don't care so much. I'm confident. Whatever I am. Take me or leave me. So I mean, I develop some confidence, then I would not go bragging about myself. So this is what Duryodhana is doing. Duryodhana also what he is doing is, he is doubting his loyal ones. So we will read in these verses that he actually becomes doubtful of Bhishma and Dronacharya. So in real life, if we start doubting people, then we end up hurting them and they may leave us also. So we have to be extremely careful of not doubting the people whom we love. So with this, we complete the first section of the first chapter. Now we will go to the second. Am I audible? God. I think I lost the signal in between. Am I audible? Very good, loving it. Okay, great, great. So I'm happy that you are able to catch it. Ganesh, Jawahar, Gaurav, Nagratna, Harish Kumar. Somebody has mentioned Galaxy. I would appreciate you write your own name so that we can have more personal interaction. Yes. Okay. So with this, we conclude the first section. Now let's get into the second section and see what is happening there. So the second section actually titles All Auspicious Krishna. So it is glorifying the presence of the Supreme Lord. Now what is happening is, this is the war zone. So in the war, at the beginning of the war, they start blowing the conch shell. So here is a verse which describes that the blowing of these different conch shell becomes uproarious, vibrating both in the sky and on the earth. It shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. So how many sons of Dhritarashtra are there? Can you quickly type? Dhritarashtra, how many sons? Is it enabled? I am not able to see anything. Am I audible? I'm not clear if I'm audible. I think there is a little difficulty which we are facing here technically. Just 1 second. Can you log in there and we will know? So now we will proceed. So yes, so it started, this war has begun, and this next section is about the all auspicious symptoms. So now we see that with Krishna brings all auspiciousness. The presence of Krishna brings all glories and all auspiciousness. So here we have certain signs. So in this section, starting from 12 to 20, we have various signs which tells that Pandavas would be victorious. So what are these signs which indicates that Pandavas would be victorious? There are mention of lot of such signs like Transcendental Conchshell, Krishna's personal presence, Hanuman, Lakshmi and Agnidev. So we will quickly see what is it. So now first thing is that it is mentioned that when Krishna and his people started blowing the conch shell, then the heart of the sons of Dhritarashtra were shattered. Now this conch shell were blown by the other army also, but then it had no impact on the Pandavas and their group. But when they started blowing conch, it was so loud and it was like as if they were declaring that they are victorious. So this is how they started blowing the conch. And so that was the first sign of victory. The second sign is Krishna was on the side of the Pandavas. So there is a small brief incident there where Krishna declares that in this battle, I will personally not fight. So he says, I will not fight, but I will be on one side and my whole army would be on other side. So when this option was given, Arjun instantly chooses that he wanted Krishna to be on his side. And Duryodhana was very happy that what only Krishna would do, I have the entire army. So he was also very happy. So the second sign of victory is Krishna's personal presence. In fact, when we would reach the 18th chapter, we would find this beautiful verse, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partho Dhanurdhana, Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutir, Dhruvani Tirmatir Mama, that wherever there is Krishna and wherever there is Arjun, there is all auspiciousness, there is all victory. So this is what happens when Krishna is there. So we have our life lesson here that one who takes shelter of Krishna has nothing to fear even in the midst of greatest calamity. So for Pandavas, there was such big problem and yet there was no difficulty because Krishna was there. I think the video is disconnecting. I am not very sure. Am I audible? Is it clear? Clear. Okay, thank you. Because it suddenly becomes blank. So I just wonder because I don't want to miss out anything. Okay. So with this principle comes the other principle, Rakhe Krishna Mare Krishna Rakhe Ke. If Krishna wants to protect, then who can kill? And if Krishna wants to kill, then who can protect? So if you agree with this principle that Rakhe Krishna Mare Ke and Mare Krishna Rakhe Ke, if you agree with this principle, type Jai in the chat box. Jai, Jai, Shri Krishna Bhagavan ki Jai. 43 messages. Great. So now we will proceed to the next slide. Next slide. That the third sign of victory is Hanuman's presence on Arjuna's flag. So Arjuna's chariot had a flag and there Hanuman was personally present. And Hanuman also gave this benediction that I will participate in the battle, but just by being on the flag. And what would he do being on the flag? When the chariot would be surrounded with lots and lots of enemies, then what Hanuman would do is he would scream loudly. And just by his screaming, many people would die. Like hundreds of people would die just because of Hanuman screaming. So presence of Hanuman on Arjun's flag is another sign of victory. So the life lesson here is when we are on Krishna's side or when we are on Dharma's side, then all his associates, all his followers, they help us. So like how we see Hanuman was personally helping Arjuna. Why was he helping? Because Krishna was on his side. So we have to always choose the side where Krishna is. So that is a life learning for all of us. Then the next is the presence of goddess of fortune or Lakshmi. So Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, in these verses, he is addressed as Madhava. Madhava means husband of goddess of fortune or husband of Lakshmi. So when Krishna is there, Lakshmi is automatically there because Lakshmi is a very chaste wife. And so wherever is her husband, she always is there. So the presence of Lakshmi is another auspicious sign. And the fifth point is that Arjun had a very special chariot which was made of white horses, and it was given to him by Agni Dev. So that indicates that whoever rides this chariot would be victorious in all the directions. So that was the wonderful benediction which he had. So we see now that there were various signs of victory which was shown even before the battle began, all because Krishna was personally present. So Krishna brings auspiciousness to all our lives. So with this, we conclude this section and we would go to the next section. And before we get into the next section, we have another poll for each one of you. So check out your screen and here we are launching it. So in your relationship, in any of your relationship, have you ever experienced disappointment or heartbreak or separation by death, or none of them or all of them? So I request you to poll this. Sachin, I see that you are typing a question here. So we have shared a question answer form. Can we paste it again? So you please post the question there and we will be taking your question. We will be sharing the question answer session,